Hello, welcome everyone to pro tip number 51. As you can see, we're doing it a bit differently this time. I thought since Jacob always gets to stay home, I thought I want to stay home as well for once. So setup wise, we're gonna do it a bit different, more kind of podcast meeting style, where we just go over the topic that we have for this month and take a look at what there is to see. And what there is to see this month, what we're going to go over this month, is I took some time to take a look at some AI tools in combination with Lansweeper documentation. I know in the past I've had people ask me, can we use documentation? That was more from a legal side, but can we use Lansweeper documentation in AI? Which you can, because it's publicly available, obviously. And I thought of that. What can you do with that actually, and how would that help you? So, spinning off of that idea, I thought, let's take a look at some tools that can utilize documentation and utilize it in combination with AI. Really to see if, and the primary point of view for this topic is really to see if it can help us with reporting. I know obviously that there's quite a lot of you that have a basic knowledge of SQL. A lot less that have a basic knowledge of Mongo. But we're going to take a look and see, using the documentation and AI, can we let it basically create reports for us? Or how far can it get by creating reports for us? So in order to get this done, one thing that we will need, or the things that we will need, is obviously documentation. As you know, there is a database documentation within Lansweeper on-prem that you can use. There's also a documentation version of the Lansweeper site reporting. So you can use that as well. I've used both of those, saved them as PDF, and then the additional resource that I used a tool from DBForge called Documenter for SQL Server. This is a way that you can basically create PDF documentation of a SQL database, as the name suggests. And that will let you get much more information out of the database, because it will also be able to tell you what the foreign keys are and all those sort of things, which will get you, or will hopefully give the AI model a lot more information to work with and will make the results more accurate. So heading over to the tools that we'll be using, or that I've found. First up is DocGPT, which is just a site-based tool that you can sign up for. It has a free trial, but it's very limited. You might be able to ask it one or two questions, and then it will prompt you to enter payment information for the 30-day trial. But once you enter your payment information, you can get a 30-day free trial. After that, I think it says here down below, it's premium for $5 a month. So it's pretty cheap on that side. And it does use OpenAI's AI model behind it, in combination with some other things, I think. The second option is PrivateGPT. Now, I did also find another site that was called PrivateGPT, but I think there's two things using the same name. Make sure, I'll obviously link it in a text version of this pro tips, but make sure that you head over to the GitHub here that shows you, or that belongs to PrivateGPT. PrivateGPT is, as the name suggests, it is a offline, basically a private version of an AI tool. It is much more extensive than the DocGPT one. I'll show you through it later on as well, but it has many options where you can switch AI models. You can have different profiles. You can let it ingest data in different methods to improve efficiency. So this is a very extensive tool, but that comes with the bonus of it being completely, let's say, private. You can run it on-prem on whatever device you want. I think it has support for at least both Windows and Linux. I assume it also allows you to do it on Mac. I haven't really checked, but it is very extensive. It does say here, by the way, Mac OS, so it also lets you do it on Mac. It's very extensive, has a lot of options. And the bonus of this really is, and the reason why it was created was really with the focus on it being private and secure, so that you're not handing over anything that you upload or anything that you enter. You do not hand it over to whoever owns the AI model, and it won't be used for training the AI model later on. So that's the big upside of this. I haven't read through the privacy policy and terms of use of DocGPT. So if you're worried about that, I suggest you read through it first. And as with all the AI models, I suggest, or all the available free AI models, I suggest that you do not upload anything confidential or enter anything confidential in those tools, because basically anything you enter in here or type in here is out for everyone to get. At least that's the reasoning that I use, just to be safe. So with those disclaimers being given, let's try some things. I have a few questions ready on my end, and we'll kind of go back and forth, and we'll answer some things and see if it can answer that, and then we'll go to the other tool as well, PrivateGPT, and ask it the same things, and then see how it kind of compares. So the first one that I have here, I'll just copy it from my documentation. And I'll read it out as it gives the answer. So give me a SQL script that gives me all Windows assets with their name, IP, manufacturer model that are running Hyper-V Guest, and also the Hyper-V Guest name. So as you can see, it did provide us with a full query, which is nice. It does have create view, so it is kind of thinking that we want to create a view in the database, which is not ideal. But I think as long as you leave that part out, you can basically just select this query. And I'm pretty sure that this, head over to my Lansweeper, create a new report. I do have a machine here that's hosting a Hyper-V Guest, because that's what I'm using for the PrivateGPT tool. Hyper-V Guest. Make sure I write it correctly. Hyper-V Guest, run it. And that's pretty much what I asked for. So on that side, if you get the prompt right, it does seem to work quite well. Jacob, do you have a question ready for our AI model and see if it performs or not?
Well, you put me on the spot. How about, can you create a SQL query that gives me a list of all Linux assets and their software?
Let's see what it spits out. So it is again trying to create a view, but aside from that, Linux as conditions. Aside from that, it's interesting because I think from this part that all looks fine. Even on the joins, it's interesting that it seems to be filtering on OpenSSL as a software, even though we didn't ask it to do that. Which, okay.
It looks like the joins may need some modification as well. If you enter join on the TSYS IP locations, it will not return things that do not have a defined.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, there's a good example to show that it's, the first one we kind of got lucky and it gave us quite a good prompt. But you can see that there's these sort of things that can sneak in, where if you're really new to SQL, you wouldn't catch these. You wouldn't catch this, for example, is something that you wouldn't really see. I'm trying to see if it does correctly join software, because that's one that's more specific of a table to join, especially with the software uni one, where it links the name to the software ID, basically. That's one that's more specific, but it seems to do that one correctly.
That looks right.
It does say Linux software. I wonder, I'm not 100% sure. I think Linux software might be correct. Let me just check. This is why it's useful to have the database documentation on hand. Linux software is okay. That is correct. Sometimes I have to remind myself whether it's Linux software or Linux applications, because Mac has Mac applications for their software. Our database can be interesting at times like that. So it does seem that that's correct. So I mean, from looking at this, it does seem this should work. Obviously, you'd have to remove the condition for the open SSL. Not quite sure why I thought of that. And you'd have to remove the create view. But if you have a basic understanding of SQL, I mean, this even if you're, I guess even if you know how to create a SQL query, this does save you some time.
Yes. Yeah, definitely looks promising here. Just remove that one little line and see what happens.
Basically, yeah. Let me see. Go back to documents. And so I'm just trying to see how it deals with users. If I ask it to show me the last user of the device. Since users can be quite complex within the Lansweeper database model, because it can either go very easy and just give you the last user, or it can go quite insane with like Active Directory users and all those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to see what it's going to try and do in here. So it does give me some basic asset information here. That seems fine. Then it seems to go to the user tables instead of just giving me the easiest way that it would have been able to do it would be just be lost user, and it'd give me that. But it seems to do quite a complex query here. I'm curious whether that would work. I have my doubts, but let's give it a try. And see last user test. Invalid column name. Last user logon. User last logon. Where did it do that? Nope. User last logon. Okay. What if we remove that? I'm just trying to see if it will give us anything. If I remove the immediate errors, it has given us something. Gives us the last user. Okay. So aside from that one issue, it does seem to give me at least a result that this is what I would expect it to indeed do. So again, it's one of those things where it provides results, but you need to you need to double check it, basically. Okay, next prompt. Do you have anything else, Jacob, that you want to ask it?
Can you write me a query that provides a list of Windows devices or assets and which Windows updates, which updates have been installed on it?
So Windows assets and which updates have been installed on it, which will be an interesting one because, I mean, that's more or less parts of what I use for Patch Tuesday. And it doesn't seem to be able to find that. Interesting. I wonder if I can make it with just one or two prompts, make it better.
Yeah, I might not have worded it well.
No, it's fine. It's I mean, if it doesn't understand it, doesn't understand it. I want to see if I can get it to understand it, because the main reason why it might not understand it is because in the database it's like listed as table quick fix engineering, which our documentation isn't that great on that specific part. So I'm trying to see if I give it that component, if it'll be able to figure out use the table quick fix engineering for the updates. I'm curious whether we'll see that. Asset name, update name. That's not really. So it seems that we have run into some sort of limit on how complex you can go. I think really the best way to use this would be, I think the most success that we've seen so far is when you specifically mention, like, I want a report that has like this field, this field, this field.
Name, IP address, or asset name, IP address, MAC
Indeed.
address. Well, this is really cool though. And
Yeah,
you provided all the documentation to this thing?
yeah. So I mean, it has all the documentation that I was able to get out of the database. The one, I mean, I saved this documentation as a PDF, or this this database documentation as a PDF, and I gave it the documentation that I grabbed using the SQL database documentation tool, basically.
That's
And
cool.
with that, it's able to get some decent results, but it seems to very much depend on the prompt. So maybe I want to swap over to the other tool and maybe ask it like one or two questions as well, just to see how it performs. So let me connect to that one. Now I'll have to do some setup real quick, but this will also give you, hopefully I can restore the previous one. There we go. This is the wrong one. This is the right one. And there, okay. And let me grab some things here because I have to fire it up first. If you want to grab this PrivateGPT one, obviously it's linked. There's a quick start where you can just be like, hey, if you want to run this on a Linux or Unix device, you can just run all of these commands and you'll be good to go. Basically, it installs itself and you can start trying it out. The thing that I need, let me look at my documentation, is I need to start using it from this point because I already have it installed, so I don't need to run everything. I just need to some specific pieces. Hit up my terminal, paste in there. Yep. Oh, well, it seems to have done it anyway. And then now I'm in the virtual environment. Then I need to, is it this one or is it in manual where it is? I always have to, oh wait, no, it's in manual. And then I think in this one, yes, make it run with the local profile. Let's try that again. Overview, quick start. Copy. There we go. Manual, backend, and this one is what I need to then make it go, hopefully. There we go. It is booting up. And with that done, I should hit here and we have it in it. I've already made sure that I've uploaded the files, but you can upload files, whatever PDF files. And I think it supports more file types than the DocGPT one. But you can upload whatever. It does, depending on how much resources you give it, obviously, it can take quite a while. It obviously does require quite a bit of resources to actually run because it's running all locally. So you do have to make sure that you do that. So it does have three different modes, basically. You can query the documents. You can search in the documents if you're looking for specific things, or you can do the LLM chat, which is, then it doesn't take the documents into account at all. Then you're basically just talking to the AI model that's behind it without looking at the things in general or the documents. But since we have the documents, let me try and see what it gives me if I type in the first one that we did last time. I'll try and replicate it exactly. So can you give me a SQL script that gives me all Windows assets with their name, IP, manufacturer, model, running a Hyper-V guest, and also the Hyper-V guest name. Submit. And let's see what kind of result we get from this. Now, this might take a bit longer compared to the other one because it is running all locally. I have provided it with a decent amount of resources, but it might still take a bit before it actually spits out an answer to us. It's like watching someone else type.
It's pretty cool though. It kind of walks you through it.
Yeah. Assumes asset type is OS name. It even adds comments, which is nice.
Yeah.
So it's already an upside from an upside of this one compared to the other model that we had is that this one provides you with some comments that will kind of show up at least, but comments are unfortunately not supported in the report builder. But I mean, it's telling us that it's not able to provide the exact same thing that we want, but then at least it gives you something that's close to it. Now, looking at the report that it actually gave us, firmware guest, that seems fine. So, and it also lists us the actual, sources. I think the where condition probably won't work. I doubt that will work because the asset type name will never be Microsoft Windows. But the rest, asset key, not sure about this asset key join either. But it seems to, I mean, it's a decent start. However, I mean, there's upsides and downsides because this one gives you some more information, I think. But the other one, the DocGPT that we looked at least gave us a full query that actually worked. This one won't work. This one will need some work. So that's a bit unfortunate.
Well, this is cool though. I didn't know you can actually make a private GPT and upload documents.
Yeah, just the simple fact that you could do that is already quite impressive. I'm just hoping that it can give us. I'm going to go to the second one that you set for the previous one and see what it gives us for that.
Okay.
As our last example for this private GPT one, which was the Linux one with software. So, can you create a SQL query that gives me a list of Linux assets and their software? And then we sit back and relax and wait for it to answer. For this one, you do have to have a bit more patience. But on the upside, while it's doing that, I could show that, for example, you can also use OpenAI with this if you want. So it doesn't have to be all private. It's up to you if you want to configure it to have OpenAI. I think also on the quick, if I go to the overview, the quick start, it also has like instructions for if you want to run it on a GPU. So the default one that it installs is running on a CPU, or is
Oh,
designed to run on CPU. If you do want to make it run on a GPU, they also have detailed guides for that and how to get it running on that. So, I mean, like I mentioned in the beginning, this has quite a lot of configuration that you can do to it. So the reason why it's running slower right now is because of my setup, and also I haven't given it the entirety of my CPU. But you can get it to run quicker if you have the hardware available to you. So it seems that here it is also starting to create a view, but similar to the other one, we can ignore that. Okay, so now that this has finished, looking at this report, aside from it trying to create a view again, it seems to be trying to use the Linux enclosure as the asset name, which won't be correct. Chassis type as a model, which will also not be correct. So this one, compared to the DocGPT one, it seems that, I mean, overall, at least in the two examples that we've tried right now, I mean, it seems less complete, at least, or less accurate when it comes to actually creating a query, which is a bit unfortunate. So yeah, it is indeed quite ambitious. I think right now, and I'm sure you agree, Jacob, we've kind of shown what we can do with it, and I think we've also kind of shown the limitations of it, right?
yes. Like I said, I didn't even know that you could do this, and just the idea of being able to. It's one thing to use Chat GPT and
Hmm.
walk through an existing query or something and troubleshoot and go back and forth, but the idea of giving it the actual database documentation and schematics to have it figure out things that you won't know to give to the traditional Chat GPT is pretty cool. It's very promising.
Yeah, and
I like
I
it.
mean, like, yeah, the AI stuff is still relatively new, you could say. So I mean, these are early days, especially when it comes to like uploading documents and getting to use it, get it to use your own data, let's say. Um, I know, for example, that Google also has its Bard AI, as you probably know. It's also looking into doing things like this. I'm hoping that in the future I'll be able to connect the Google AI to like my Google Drive or something, where I can just upload files into my Google Drive and it'll be able to query those. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that just yet because it seems like they don't support that yet. It does let you connect it to your email and stuff, but
Huh.
I'm not quite sure. I think that's more for like helping you write things in your email, for example, in your Gmail. But yeah, that's an interesting thing to look forward to, is seeing how these AI models allow you more and more to utilize your own data. And the more we're able to do that, I think the more impressive these results will become. I think now we've shown pretty clearly that, I mean, the DocGPT one, I think out of the two that we saw right now,
Mhm.
I see you nodding, is probably the one that we agree on is providing the most accurate results if you just want to type in something and get a result back. But you have the downsides of that being public, obviously. This is an alternative if you want to use it. This is just a default model that I use in PrivateGPT. It has different AI models. So if you're interested in this stuff, I definitely recommend going through that GitHub and going through the documentation and taking a look what's possible. You can also run it on OpenAI, but then I think you need the premium, you need the subscription model to link it to the API of OpenAI. Anyway, that's a long way of basically saying that there's still a lot of promise here. It's kind of early days. You might be able to use it for some things, especially if you're very new to SQL. It can help you a bit of the way there. But I think the most promising thing is kind of seeing where this can lead to and how you can use this in a couple of months' time, in a year time, where hopefully we'll get to a point where you can just type in a sentence, it gives you a complete finished report back, and you're basically done. I think that's kind of the goal. So anyway, I want to thank you for watching and joining me and Jacob through this. Basically, what was also for us was an experiment and just kind of running through it and finding out what works and doesn't.
So good stuff, Esmond.
Yeah. All right. Well, happy to show this off. Jacob, thank you for joining. And we'll be back next month with a new topic.